Good morning, everybody. Today is a beautiful day. I just woke up and I can see that here in Bergen, or like I can show you for the ones who are watching this, you can see that it just snowed a lot. So it's like full of snow outside, which is pretty cool. And for the ones who listen, you can just imagine a lot of snow. So yeah. Anyways, today's episode is with Tobias Leenaert, who has co-founded the Center for Effective Vegan Advocacy, as well as ProVeg International. He's also an author, written a book called How to Create a Vegan World. And also, he's done like a lot of other amazing works as well. And I was lucky to meet him first in like 2017 or 2018 or something like that, here in Oslo or like in Norway. And we have a picture from that time. I just went vegan, I remember, and was pretty stoked to see Tobias. So it's pretty cool that I got the honor to meet Tobias now later at a conference. We filmed this in 2022. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to Tobias again for all the amazing work that you do and for taking the time to talk with me. Okay, so we can just jump straight into the conversation. This is the conversation between me and Tobias. Okay, hi Tobias.
Hey.
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me here today and to talk about animal rights specifically. Remember I saw you first in Oslo giving a talk at the University of Oslo, and then I think I just like briefly seen you hold some talks at a lot of like effective altruist conferences and so on. And yeah, really appreciate taking the time to talk today. So you've been in the animal rights movement pretty long time, and I thought it would be amazing to go a little deep with you about like how we could like most effectively like communicate animal rights, because many of the viewers and listeners of this podcast will care deeply about animals, and I know there are some disagreements in like how we should communicate around this and so on. So yeah, where would you like to start regarding that?
Well, maybe it's good to start by saying again what you said, like that all of us care deeply about this topic about animal rights, or all the people listening, or the activists, the people in the movement. We care really, really deeply. We want to change the situation. We all want, in this movement, the abolition of the use of animals. But that doesn't prevent us from having different ideas about how to get there. But the other way around, having different ideas about how to get there shouldn't lead us to disagree violently or argue or fight among each other. We have to really trust that we all want the same thing. So that's a very important thing, that if you can remember that we all want the same thing, then it becomes a lot easier to accept that, like, okay, we have different ideas of how to get there, right?
Yeah.
So my ideas are slightly different than some other people, and I have gone through an evolution in how I think about animals. And basically, I do think that there's different stages in this movement, different stages in terms of like the evolution throughout time. And I think to some extent you could say that we are still in an early stage of this revolution. And in this early stage, I do think that it is still very important to be what I call pragmatic, to be focusing on results and to not get hung up on our own rules and our orthodoxy of what is vegan and what is not, or like dogmatic ideas of saying like we have to always talk about the animals, we have to always talk about go vegan. My idea is, in this phase, we have to make sure that we create a lot of good alternatives for people in whatever way we can. It is only when people have enough good alternatives, and with good I mean in this case tasty, but also cheap and healthy and everywhere available. It is only when people have enough alternatives that they are able to go another way and to change their mind. So many of us have been able to change their mind by ourselves and we would have done so. We would have gone vegan even if there was only water and bread that we could eat. But most people do not want to make a sacrifice. So if we can make sure that people have really great food, that it's really easy, that it's everywhere, that it's maybe the norm, the default, then it will get so much easier for many people to think about animal rights, because they don't have anything to be defensive about anymore. They already know that they can have good food. So then they would say like, oh yeah, so let me listen to these animal rights ideas. But as long as they fear that they will lose access to great food, as long as they fear they have to make a very big sacrifice, they will be very closed. And everyone can see that for themselves. Like if you think that strange behavior of meat eaters, you can try to see where you yourself don't want to know certain information. Because if you know it, it's uncomfortable. I always give the idea like, the meat eaters tell the vegans, yeah, but don't plants feel pain, and doesn't a carrot bleed when you cut it, or whatever nonsense. But what if you take this question a bit more seriously and you look at the fact that there seems to be some evidence for some cognition among plants, some certain form of awareness. This is something that I'm very uncomfortable with. This is something that the books that have been written about this topic, I don't want to read them. I really don't want to know what's in those books, because if I know, what will I do? I don't have a way out, right? I'm not going to stop eating plants. So that's a way to see like, okay, everybody is like that. For everybody, there is information that they don't want to know, because knowing that information is uncomfortable.
Yeah, that really makes sense. I kind of don't want to read those books as well, but and also I guess the typical thing of remembering like our time before we went vegan and so on. Like I still love like Martin, who is like age 10 and like, but doesn't know what he's doing or like with his diet and regarding to animal rights and so on. I wouldn't say that like he's like such a horrible like young kid running around there. But I'm really happy that he learned later and expanded his ethics or compassion, I guess. But that we're all different. So as you're mentioning, not everybody can just like watch one documentary or like hear one sentence and be like, oh, nice, makes sense. There are like many things I really don't understand. So like, for example, in the effective altruism movement, it takes me really long time to like understand like AI, artificial intelligence, and the different existential risks and so on. So I know I have my spots where it takes a lot of time for me to understand, kind of. And I guess for some people, animal rights is like one of those areas as well, where it can take really long time before people understand why people actually turn vegan, for example.
Yeah, and I think a big part of not understanding, or something that explains to some extent why people are so slow to understand, is because they are surrounded by people who don't understand. They're surrounded by people who are just eating meat, by a society that throws meat at them from all sides, by a society that like puts basically horrible things in advertisements and tells them like, look, you can now have it for that price, and it's all over the retail. We are surrounded by all these things that when you look closer at them, they're not normal, or they're not good at all. They're horrible. But if something is so omnipresent, if it's everywhere, and if everybody thinks like that, then it will look entirely normal to you, and you will not question it, and you will say like, yeah, even if you feel there might be something bad about this, you will say like, well, everybody's doing it, so there must be something that maybe I'm not seeing. Maybe I'm wrong thinking about this way. So I always say like one answer to the question, why do most people eat meat? Well, the answer is most people eat meat because most people eat meat. Most people do what other people do, and we get our cues as to how to behave from the behavior of other people. And obviously, if all of a sudden you would be in a place, in a country or something where 80% of the people would be would be vegan, or in an environment, maybe some people at university where the norm is totally different, you would start questioning yourself and your behavior much more than one does now.
Hmm. Okay, so I know a lot of people, and myself included, like sometimes like we are in the streets and we're like talking with people about animal rights and so on. Yeah, like do you have any thoughts around like when we're like showing footage to people from like animal agriculture and like some ways of communicating with people in the streets?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you're in the streets and you want to show graphic footage, I think that, I mean, it's good if there's some self-selection of the people, like if they come to you because they see that they have some questions about this footage. I don't think like showing this footage to like just everyone, also people who don't want to see it, is the best idea. But I do think
Yeah.
that like you mainly engage with people who come to you and who say like, oh, what is this? What's going on here? And they kind of feel some kind of, I mean, attraction is the wrong word, but they feel interested or fascinated by what you're doing and by those. And maybe they have already had something inside them telling them like, this is not good, and I have to learn more about this, and then they come to you. So I think that's really fine. I do think, I've always thought that ideally we combine our moral arguments with something related to food. So ideally you would be able to give them like some good food, and then confront them with the arguments, like you say, like,
Yeah.
okay, this is footage, or this is the argument for animals, here's some good food. Or you could maybe give them like a coupon for like a restaurant in the street where they could go to, and you would say, we tell them like, here's a 20% discount voucher for this restaurant around the corner, go get your burger there or something, and think about this. I think that would be, if the food is good, that could be a powerful combination. I think it's really important to stay calm, and I think we have good role models for that, like Earthling Ed, on how to shape our communication toward these people. I do think personally, and maybe some people in Cubes or whatever differ in opinion with me, but I always try to talk to people about the things that I think they are interested in. We can't always know, but sometimes people are not interested in animals, but they might be interested in environment or health. And so that variation or that flexibility, that's something I like. And I also like the flexibility in terms of like what you ask them. And I know that sometimes, maybe in Cubes Anonymous, I don't know, there is the idea like the only thing you can ask for is go vegan. That I'm not much a fan of. I think that is a bit dogmatic. That is the idea of like, it has to be like this, but what if it's not the best way? What is not the best? What if it doesn't give the best result? So I do think that suggesting to people to do veganuary or something, or to do the vegan challenge or whatever, that is a good idea, because that is a much more doable ask. It's a more doable thing. Like people can see themselves much more easily to like try it for a month and then see where it takes them, rather than make a commitment to go vegan right on the spot. I don't know what people are asking, but I would definitely like work with like some sort of temporary pledge. I think that would be a good ask. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's important to have like as many people as possible in the streets, in as many cities, and as many moments as possible. I'm in favor of those actions, and I think the more that other people will see it, the more they will say like, okay, these are not strange, weird, abnormal people. You know, these are people with an important message, and they're everywhere. And what is this? I've come across them in this city and in this city. I don't know if the masks, the anonymous masks, are like the best idea. I can understand what purpose they have, but I do think it gives a bit of a feeling of like, well, these are strange people, or this is something strange. It doesn't like make the distance between us and them smaller. Is my feeling, but maybe there's part of a theory behind that I'm not seeing or something.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Like because like I also run like a network organization in Norway, which like we're working with like environmentalism, animal rights, and also human rights, and we have created like our own sort of like cube, which we just call like reality,
Mm-hmm.
and then we show like the reality of like farmed animals or reality of fast fashion or like some other topics.
Yeah.
And we are really backing for it. Like, should we wear a mask or something or not? We one time wore like black bandana, and that was kind of the last time we did that. Like we were like really scary. Like
Yeah.
people were like, yeah, like we looked like we're gonna rob everybody or something.
Yeah.
And then we had like blue bandanas, and then we had them on our arm, but that also looked kind of weird. Um, and then we mostly actually don't wear anything. We just like have a computer or like TV screen, and yeah. But then I know like some of the volunteers also, they don't like that people can see them. So yeah, no, yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you have any
Maybe-
good idea,
Maybe it can be tested. Maybe like there can be some volunteers looking from a distance, like, and trying to observe, like, when you get the best interactions or when you get the most people, or maybe there's a way to like test it. But my intuition would be like, yeah, not hiding your face would be a better thing. If somebody doesn't want to show their face, then maybe they should do something else or something. That's what my intuition would say.
yeah, interesting. Okay, and what about social media communication and animal rights? By the way, do you have any thoughts around that?
Well, social media in general is very notoriously very hard to communicate on and to have fruitful discussions on. I'm mostly on Facebook. I think younger people are not there so much anymore, but I don't know how discussions on other media go, like on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. But yeah, it's, I mean, there are basic things of communication apply, I think. So things like, okay, you have a person who irritates you with their reactions, with their stupid, idiotic reactions, let's say. Well, you can't think of them as stupid and idiotic. You have to try to stay calm and give like a very honest answer, a very calm answer, friendly answer, without being cynical. Without saying like, "Oh, you idiot," blah blah blah. You know, it's very easy to give that kind of reaction. I feel it all the time inside me, and all the time I have to stop me and say like, "Okay, let's give a calm reaction, a polite reaction, a friendly reaction." And you have to remember that this reaction is not just for that person, but it is a reaction for everybody who's reading along, and everybody who's reading along. That might be 100 people or something or more. They will see reaction, and they will also interpret it and see what they can get from it, and they will also have their judgments on what are vegans like? Are they friendly, or are they like aggressive, or are they like, do they want to like convert us, or can they just give good information? And the second thing is like, I think also it's important to get our information straight, to get it right, and to not exaggerate it, and to not say like, I see a lot of wrong information. I think it's good if we are as correct as possible, if we don't exaggerate things, if we don't exaggerate the health benefits of a vegan diet, or I think that in the long run, being correct with the information is very important. So I mean, there's many other things. I think asking questions is a very important thing. Like, okay, somebody says something, and rather than saying like, look, this is not true because this and this and this, or this, your argument is flawed, or you're absurd because this and this and this. I think you can better stimulate people to think by asking them a question, like, why do you think that, or don't you think that, or can you maybe see the difference with this, or all kinds of things like that. And that takes a lot of practice. It doesn't come naturally. And so naturally we will just be tempted to like just go in and fight and show the absurdities in other people's reasoning. But that doesn't necessarily make you any friends. I always quote a saying that they use in sales: winning the argument is losing the customer. So you might win the argument on Facebook. You might be the smartest, but people may hate you still because you won the argument. So try to get along and try to like find some way where the other person doesn't lose face. But it's really very tempting. Also because it's fun. It's fun to like just say, this is crazy because this and this, and you are such a fool because this and this. It's very natural for us. So we have to be very aware of that, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. And I have also seen so many times when actually replying in a kind way, that people are kind of like replying also back like, oh shit, like sorry, like I didn't think you were gonna reply, like I I was just a jerk, like something like that.
Right.
And then also I remember, okay, so we have a campaign in Norway about like stopping whaling in Norway. And then we went to Lofoten, which is like an area in Norway where they're like doing whaling, and the local newspaper posted about us, like, oh, like those, like these people like are demonstrating against our local industry and so on. And then the comment section, of course, was like horrible, like death threats and like super bad. And then I remember one lady, she was writing like, oh, like you should do something much better with your time, like go do an ocean cleanup or something. And then we actually had an ocean cleanup plan for the next day. So we just invited her to come to the cleanup together. Yeah, but she was still mad. So
yeah, I mean, it's also important to see that there's fights, a lot of fights you're never going to win. And it's important to see like, okay, what am I going to invest my time in? What will serve the animals, right? And there's a lot of times we're not thinking like that. We're thinking like, oh, what is going to be entertaining for me? And it's going to be entertaining to fight a little bit here with these people, you know. And that's, it can be entertaining, can be a way to let off steam or something, but it won't help the animals. So then we better say like, okay, this person is unconvincible, unpersuadable. Let's not talk to them or let's not engage too much unless you keep in mind that other people are reading along and you are also speaking for them. Usually I would just leave a nice message and then get out. I sometimes I say like, okay, you have three possible reactions on social media. You can fight, you can take flight, which is run away, you just leave it like that, or light. You can be in the light and you can like be really in Zen mode and be really good conversationalist and answering really nicely. That is the most difficult thing. So fighting is not preferable. If you feel you want to fight, you just better choose flight. If you can choose light, then that's even better.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I think that's a really good one. And also reflecting back to when people are in the streets and so on. Like because after the activism events, we do like this debriefing and then we talk about how it went and so on. And often there are like somebody who is a bit like, oh, well, like what should I do when this like person I'm talking to just don't want to listen or just want to argue? Basically just that the other person is just in the fight mode, basically. But then it's maybe to go into the flight mode yourself or light mode, of course, but
I mean you could I'm sure there's ways to end the conversation and say that like, I wish you a good day, etc. And still you never know what will happen inside that person. It's not necessarily that it wasn't useful, but I do think there's more chance that they will think about it when you treat them really nicely and afterwards they say, maybe they think like, oh, I was a jerk, or I was trying to convince that person, and actually they were pretty nice to me, and maybe I should have listened a bit more. And we never know. I mean, in general, people may seem like jerks, but in general, I do trust that a big part of people are decent enough to at some point at least start thinking about things. And it may not be right away, and you may not see anything right away, but everything that you give them, everything that they get as input, every conversation, but every video, every social media thing, they're all drops in their bucket, and at some point hopefully the bucket will be full, and then it flows over, and then they change, but we can never see how full the bucket is. We think like this is hopeless, and we're not reaching them. But then next day there might be another person, and they might see another piece of information, and slowly but surely, many people change that way.
Love that. What about people who maybe are like considering getting into animal rights? Like maybe they're like thinking about what to study, or maybe they want to like shift their job or something, because they also care deeply about animal rights. But do you have any thoughts to them?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would like to say is that the problems in the world are so huge. We need all the people we can get to solve them, particularly with animals. I mean, the numbers are staggering. This movement still has a relatively small budget. I mean, one number I heard, like the total budget of the animal rights movement worldwide, all the organizations together, the total budget is $200 million. That may sound like a lot until you compare it, for instance, to the budget of UNICEF, which is one organization which has a budget of $6 billion. So $6 billion compared to $200 million. So one organization compared to all the animal rights, farmed animal organizations in the world. So that shows you that, like, for the size of the problem, this is a very small movement still. So we need all the people we can get. And I really want to tell people, like, I mean, please don't waste your time studying marketing and going into some company where you help spread and we help sell another stupid product that we don't need. You know, in the era of COVID, there were I read something like there were a couple of thousand web shops opening every day, thousands of web shops opening every day, and of course, I mean, you don't have to ask what they were about. They were about stupid products that really most of us do not need another one of. So it's really important to see that, we need as many people working on this as we can. And it's also important to see that this is maybe the only way that we will have a fulfilling life. You know, at some point, if we just keep selling products or do something stupid, at some point in our lives, I think we will say, like, what have I been doing? So why not right away say that? Why not right away think, like, what is the most useful thing I can do with my time? It's going to be good for the world, and it's going to be good for you as well. It's going to be rewarding. So yeah, definitely look into ways where you can have a career that helps the world, that helps animals, for instance. So, and there's a lot. I mean, there's you can work in an NGO, but you can also work in a business. You can also work for a company and help them get their products adopted. You can work for governments. You can be. I just talked to a lawyer who's like trying to win cases for animals. There's so many things that we can do, and again, this movement is really underfunded, and this movement is lacking resources and lacking people and lacking talent. So definitely choose something wisely.
Yeah, I can also add to that that okay, so two things. One is when I first started to learn about like world problems and specifically like animal rights. I remember when I when I went vegan like 6 years ago or something. I didn't know anybody who was vegan, so I was feeling that this like super weirdo, but I knew that like other people around the world, they were also like really caring about animal rights and taking like personal like changing their personal choices to kind of be in the favor of animals. But then when I found other people in that like animal rights movement and so on, it kind of lifted me up more than I would imagine as well. Like it felt so good to be like around like-minded people. And then I kind of forgot about that after the years went on, because now like my friends are like not not all of my like best friends are like vegan or but I do have like many good friends who are like vegan and like care about animal rights in some way. Maybe they're not like 100% vegan or something, but that now like people mostly around me like care about animals, I would say. but then also by running this one organization where we have like a lot of people who are like vegan. I'm mentioning the word vegan so many times now, but like, but who care about animal rights. Like just last weekend, we had this like we had a sleepover at a sanctuary where we like helped out like on Saturday and Sunday, so we can also like socialize a little bit. We could be directly with the animals as well and help out the sanctuary before winter comes, which in Norway can be crazy. And then there was like one person I remember who also like were like considering going vegan, like thinking about it, and like like she basically went around and told us like it's so nice to be here with you, like because back in the home city it's not that many people who think the same, and I think that's something like really valuable about like finding like-minded people, being careful of maybe only being around like-minded people, so you're just in the bubble. That can be dangerous, I think. But yeah, so like the next day, like on Sunday when we woke up, then she was like, "This is my day one." like like now I'm trying to be vegan and whatever that means, kind of. But at least trying, I guess, after the definition and so on, is like trying the best you can and like what's practicable to like not hurt animals, or like that's a very simplified version.
Yes,
I guess.
to avoid animal products in as far as it's practically possible, or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I think for me, the important thing is not like, yeah. I mean, you can be as vegan as possible. I've been pretty pure as a vegan for 25 years. But for me, the idea of like being vegan is like saying like, it's not saying like I'm gonna avoid as much as I can all the products, and I'm gonna look at the labels all the time, and I'm gonna make sure that I never ever eat anything from animals. For me, it's much more like I'm committing to do the best I can to help animals, and yeah. Your consumption, your food is part of that, but a much more important part of that is what you spread, your advocacy, the example you set, maybe the things you do on YouTube or in your work or whatever. But advocacy obviously can help a lot more animals, because if I'm the perfect vegan for an entire lifetime, I will have saved maybe 1,500, 2,000 animals or something. But if or like you with your podcast, your social media, you probably convince hundreds or thousands of people. And obviously, that's a much bigger impact than the impact you have with you being the perfect vegan yourself, right? So it's really important to see that. Conversely, it's also important to see that also people who are not the perfect vegans, or who are not vegans, or who are not even vegetarians, or who are not anything, can help animals. Anybody can help animals, and people don't have to think like, oh, I'm not a vegan, so I shouldn't help animals, or I can't do anything, or I'm not belonging to this movement. Or there's even people who say like, yeah, I'm not sure if I can donate to this organization because I'm not vegan. I mean, what I'm going to say as an organization, I don't want your money because you're not vegan. I mean, that's absurd. But people think like that. People think like there needs to be some kind of consistency across their thoughts, across their actions, across their food. But that's not really a requirement, like everybody can help. And the more vegan you are, the better. Although there's a limit there too. You can be too vegan and not like be inspiring anymore. Like, if I would be a vegan who would like constantly in public places everywhere, like inspect everything and say like, oh no, I can't eat this, or I can't have this wine, or I can't go there, or I can't do this, then probably I'm painting a picture of veganism as something that is way too hard. And that's not what we want to do. We want to paint a picture of being vegan as something that is doable, that is achievable, that is relatively easy, even though it's not yet easy. But let's please not make it look harder than it is by showing ourselves as too pure. So yeah, so you can be too vegan, I could say. Be as vegan as possible, not too vegan. Yeah.
That's funny. And what about can I ask around like because they're also some people who like regarding their health and so on. Like I don't have too much information about this, I gotta say, but who are saying that like they're really trying their best. So like they're mostly eating plant-based, but they have to add like a little bit of animal products. Like that's the way they are figured out that they can take care of their health. Um, but yeah, again, absolutely mostly plant-based, but with some animal products. um, and if we're then following the definition, then I kind of feel that is being vegan too. Like it feels really weird to say that, but like, do you have any thoughts around that? Like, not that it's so important, but I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
I mean, we shouldn't, of course, make it too confusing. And I mean, for me, like a person who like makes a couple of exceptions in a year, they can call themselves vegan, even though some vegans might hate me for saying that. But yeah, if a person would say like I'm like 90% and I eat meat once a week or something, it would be confusing, I think, if they call themselves vegan.
Yeah.
But I do understand some people like who have health concerns and they don't trust it entirely, and they would say like, look, I'm gonna be 95% vegan. I'm gonna have some animal products, some eggs or whatever for my health. I think if that puts people at ease, it's obviously so much better than doing nothing. So I would say like, look, if you don't trust it, if you think that being vegan is not healthy, what is the minimum amount of animal products that you think you need? And they might say like, look, I think I'd be healthy with eating 3 eggs a week or something. And then I would say like, okay, source your eggs from some good situation, where from a rescued chicken or something. Eat those 3 eggs, and and you're on board with us, and you're helping animals, and so let's not say to these people that, well, okay, you can be part of Team Vegan if you do that, you
Like
know,
that,
because
yeah.
they can definitely help. And by the way, if everybody did that, if everybody lived like that, the world would be vegan, because then there would be so much pressure on creating alternatives, etc. So yeah, we would be fine.
Interesting. Huh. Um, okay. What are you currently working on?
So I'm giving a lot of talks all over Europe. Basically, I'm also a strategic advisor to ProVeg International, which is the biggest pro-vegan organization in the world. And I'm also writing sort of a science fiction speculative novel with animal rights and effective altruism topics. Yeah.
Wow. Can we go deeper into a little bit of that? Like maybe for the ones who don't know ProVeg that much, like to explain a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a place people can work.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I can. Yeah. So ProVeg International is a pro-vegan organization. We have offices in 8 or 9 countries now. We're headquartered in Berlin. We have 200 people, staff of somewhere close to 200 people, I think. And we work on all different levels, from community building to all the way across to political influence, policy change. We are right now, as we speak, we have a delegation at COP, at the climate change, the conference in Egypt. So we're really involved at all levels, also with academia, also with retail. There's really a whole bunch of things that we do. And people are welcome to check out proveg.com/jobs to see if there's any job vacancies that might be suitable for them. And basically we are not focusing on animal welfare or animal rights, but really on food system change. So we want the world to shift in a plant-based direction. We have an intermediary goal of reducing the consumption and production of animal products by 50% by the year 2040. So that gives us 18 years to go.
Wow.
That's a very ambitious goal, but it's meant to be inspiring to people and to make them think of like what might be possible.
Amazing. And then you also mentioned you're writing a book now, but you have also written a book before. How to create a vegan world. Could you touch briefly on how we could how that's possible? Or what your main message there was, maybe?
Yeah, so how to create a vegan world, the subtitle is a pragmatic approach. So being pragmatic means that we're going to focus on what works. And I see still a lot of vegans focusing not necessarily on what works, but on what are the rules. What are the rules of veganism? We're going to follow the rules. That's not focusing on impact. I think we always have to think ourselves in the position of the animals. So, for instance, like let's imagine you're a pig, and you're not going to care what gets you out of that cage. It doesn't matter to you what gets you out. It could be the desire for profit of some people. It could be health concerns. It could be all kinds of things. It doesn't have to be necessarily concern for animal rights. So you want to get out. You want to stop the suffering. So that's really important. So pragmatism is about doing whatever works, and it's about not necessarily asking for what is ideal. So not necessarily asking go vegan, and it's also not expecting other people to have your reasons for changing. So if our reason to change our diet or whatever is animal rights, we don't expect other people to have the same reasons to change. So we could say like, okay, if you do it for health, that's fine, etc. And the whole idea is that with many people who change their diet to whatever degree, for whatever reason, they could be reducers for the environment or whatever. With a big mass of those people, that is what creates demand for alternative products. And that is also what creates supply. And the more products that are produced for this big group of people, the easier it gets for everybody to shift more and more in the plant-based direction, right? So if you look at, all the vegan products and also vegan restaurants and vegan companies, they can't survive without the business of meat producers. If they would be only producing, or if their products would be only bought by vegans, they wouldn't survive. So we know that, for instance, most Beyond Burgers or most plant-based milk is bought by people who consume both dairy milk and non-dairy milk, or meat burgers and plant-based burgers. I mean, we might say, oh, hey, that's a pity, or we might say like, hey, you have no business buying our vegan burgers if you're not vegan. But that, of course, would be very absurd, because these people are helping to drive the market and making it easier. So if you have today, as a vegan, if you have the choice between all those kinds of plant-based milk, that is thanks to the people who, for some reason, to some degree, consume plant-based milk.
That's interesting.
Yeah. The liquid market share, the market share of liquid plant-based milk is 13 or 14% worldwide. So of every 100 liters of milk that is being sold, 14 liters are plant-based milk. And of course, it's not that 1% of vegans that is responsible for drinking all that milk. They would have to drink full time if they would have to be responsible for that. So it is people who are lactose intolerant, or who want to try something else, or who do it for health reasons or whatever.
Interesting. Do you know the numbers of how many vegans we are, by the way? Or
how many vegans?
Yeah, like in the world, or
I mean, in Western countries, I don't know. I don't think I know any country where it would be higher than 2%, maybe 3%. I mean, if you count the vegetarians and the vegans together, depends on how strict you want to be in your definitions. But I think like probably Norway is a bit the same as my country, Belgium, and the Netherlands. I think the number of vegetarians, vegans in the general population, I mean, all across the board, would be around between 5 and 8% or something. If you look at particular demographics like young people, young women, you might get a lot higher percentages, like over 20% even. So that is a good sign, of course, that the younger generation is moving in that direction. It also means that in a couple of years, we will have many more vegans in important positions in politics and businesses. So in that sense, I think the future looks a lot better.
Wow. Yeah. Now we have talked a lot about like how to communicate everything about animal rights and so on. But for the people who maybe don't know much about animal rights, maybe to go a little bit deeper into like the seriousness of the problem, and like can you touch on that?
Yeah. So I think that the first thing we should realize is that there is no reason not to care about all these creatures that we consume and we use. So they have, to a very high extent, probably very similar feelings, emotions, feelings of pain, feelings of distress, of discomfort, of boredom, just like us. So if we don't take that into account, that's just like saying like, look, I don't care what you feel. I just don't give a shit. I mean, you may feel pain, you may feel horribly bad. I don't care, because, yeah, I want to eat your product. I want to eat your body. That's what you're basically saying. So that is, I think, pretty horrible. And I think that if you look at the size of the problem, so we have about 17, 80 billion land animals a year. That's without fish, that are being killed for food. Most of them chickens. So this is horrible suffering. This is also major environmental problems. This is major health problems. This is major food security problems. This is major pandemic problems. We are kind of like destroying billions of animals, making them suffer, making live horrible lives. We are destroying the environment in the process. And we do all this just for this one little organ in our body, this tongue, that wants to have a good taste experience. That's why we're destroying everything, which is crazy if you think about it, right? And for people who think like that, yeah, maybe it's all not so bad and the animals are okay, and every one of those images that we see where they are mistreated, that's just extreme exceptions, etc. Well, okay, if you see somebody like kicking or beating a cow or a chicken, maybe that's to some extent exceptional, but you have to be aware that the problem is very structural. Even without those cases where there's obvious sadism or whatever, there is a structural problem. And the structural problem basically is generally that we want to get our meat as cheap as possible. And that means that we want an animal to be ready for slaughter, to be big and fat enough as fast as possible. So if I would want you to be ready for slaughter as soon as possible, I would give you all kinds of a lot of food. I would make sure you can't move, and that I would give you hormones, and I would also have to give you antibiotics, because you would get sick from the whole circumstances. So in order for you not to get sick, I would have to put you full of antibiotics. And that way, I could make of you of a human. I could make of a human somebody who looks like a full-grown human when they're only very young. So you would look like Arnold Schwarzenegger when you're 8 or something, right? That's kind of the idea. So with chickens, I mean that's what it is. Chickens are very big in terms of their body, but they're actually still chicks. They're actually still very young creatures. A chicken is 6 weeks old when they're on our plates. So yeah, that's what we do, as fast as possible, as big as possible, and that comes together with all kinds of health problems. Like a chicken will grow so fast, like in terms of meat. So we want a chicken chest. The chest can be so heavy that they have really problems in the bones of it. A majority of chickens in the industry has painful problems in their bones, or they're so heavy that their legs can't support them. So very structural problems. There's also the fact that many, and if you look at a couple of percentages of chickens, that would still be millions of chickens in one country. Because in my country, Belgium, 300 million chickens a year are slaughtered. So a couple of percentages is already a couple of million chickens that are, for instance, stunned, or that are being killed without stunning or with bad stunning. So now and then something goes wrong, and they're killed while they are not stunned, in full consciousness. So that's also a problem in itself. So humongous amount of problems also with cows and with pigs, etc. There is, again, if we are decent human beings, there is no reason that we can or we should ignore that we can or should ignore their well-being.
Why should we care about animals?
I really think that this is one of the biggest moral problems of this time. Yuval Noah Harari, the famous author, he said that factory farming is probably the worst crime in history, and farmed animals are probably the biggest victims in history. And I think it is even impossible for us to see, even for vegans, people who have been in this movement for a long time. It is impossible still to see how big, how cruel, how absurd this crime is still, because we are so in it. I think it's only in 100 years or something, when we look back, that we will be able to see the full extent of how horrible this was. And I think in the future there will be PhDs written and books written to try to explain how it was all possible. People will wonder, like, did they not know what was going on? Did they not know that animals felt pain? Like, how could they do this? And they will be puzzled. They will not know how we were able to all participate in this enormous crime. They will just wonder, like, whether we were unaware, or whether we thought maybe that we couldn't survive without animals. I think that's the kind of theories that people will have in the future about us. Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
Yeah, in a way, it's very strange that this is all taking so much time. This is all taking so long. The evidence is very clear. The sacrifice may look big in the beginning, but like once you're vegan for a couple of months, it becomes so natural. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I would just ask everybody who's listening to this podcast and who feels that they really care to support this movement with everything that they can. Not just say like, oh yeah, I'm vegan, I'm doing the best I can, I'm already doing this and that, but like see if you have options to do more. And again, this will create a much more fulfilling life. And there is a lot of options. There's the options of using your skills and changing your diet, and moving into a career that helps animals. And also maybe you don't have time or you don't have skills, but maybe you have some money. You can donate to organizations that help these animals. Everything is important, and it's only with a mass movement that this will work. So I'd say like do your best and make some kind of contribution if you're able to.
Thank you so much, Tobias, for being here, and thank you for your work. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.